What's going on, YouTube? We thought it was going to be a big one, and here it is. Let's just not waste any time. Let's look at the new SSR Animus Lilium, who is going to be dark. She's going to be some kind of a burst damage, and she's going to have those stuns on her when she kills. But without seeing numbers, I don't really want to say anything too defining on her. I don't see her being too crazy in PvE, so if you're going to be pulling forward, you definitely want her in PvP. And I think just having her, so that way if she ends up being crazy, just so you can take her away from your opponent in draft, is going to be pretty nice. Of course, you can always pre-ban, but... And then we have our... not our first new SR, but maybe, I guess, our first new SR since launch. We have Sun Shadow Nell, also going to be a dark unit. She is going to be a buffer, and she will have pretty much just one debuff that's going to be vulnerable. And this is going to be good because the only other form of consistent vulnerability that we have is Dina. So this is going to be nice, that way she's a little more flexible in different content, you know, being light or dark. Everything about her is like light themed, but she's a dark character for some reason. But yeah, she's going to be a lot more flexible than Dina, because Dina is, you know, red and she is dark, so she's going to be able to work a lot more in other places. For some reason in the news post, they don't have like the details on these characters whatsoever, so I had to go and find these images. I think these are probably from Twitter or something, some kind of promotional images for the character. On another note, for Lilian, her video, it is very interesting that they stopped showing specific numbers. I assume because they kept fucking them up. So they're just like, just quit showing the numbers, just say what they do, and then that way they can't complain about us getting it wrong every time. But anyway, S1 single target vulnerability, 2-turn, classic, we got it. S2 4 hits, each hit heals the ally with the highest attack and increases their turn meter, so that's 4 times. We're gonna need to see numbers on that turn push as well as the heal. And then the S3 AoE, vulnerability for 2 turns, and grants allies a 3-turn speed buff. This is going to be, I think, our second unit that gives a 3-turn speed buff. Very big, you don't have to worry about keeping it up as often. Very nice. I am very iffy on the S2 though. It's a little awkward because you can't target it for whatever. I'm really not sure why you can't target the skill. It doesn't really make much sense to me. But highest attack is going to change. It's going to change from team to team, and it's going to change from PvE to PvP, you know, whatever. Because there's going to be attack breaks, there's going to be buff strips. This is going to fluctuate and change a lot of the times, you know, who this is actually going to target. You know, same thing with like Lily AI. You know, as soon as debuffs are into the mix, her AI gets all kinds of fucked up when you're trying to auto run things. So it'll be interesting to see. I think this is mostly going to be used just for turn push. So turn push is going to help everybody, but the heal specifically is going to be very awkward. All right, so just showing that the banner is going to be going on for about 3 weeks. I believe that Nell should be on rate up as well, so it'll be Lilium and Nell in there. So that'll be good. So that way you can make sure you can guarantee that you grab those 2 characters. Now then, on to the bigger changes. There's a big character patch that we'll skip past that for now. We'll loop back to that at the end. So we'll look at everything else, or at least the things that I thought were important. There are some other little things, so I recommend you check this out yourself as well. There's some things that I'll probably glaze over because I just didn't think they were as important, or maybe there wasn't enough clarity. But there's definitely some good stuff here. First up is Inferno difficulty. Shell dungeons are now going to guarantee a red shell drop after every 5 wins. Cool. They mentioned that this was going to be probably a thing, some form of a pity. Neat. At least you're guaranteed something. You'll never go 10 runs now, or you'll never even go 5 runs now without at least getting 1 red. So that'll at least help. As long as they didn't adjust anything else, that does mean that technically the rate of you actually getting a Inferno shell is going to be a little higher now. More anti-sync echoes is being opened up. I really need to jump on those. I haven't touched it, honestly, in probably like a month, something like that. Not sure. But Ember Trek, new mechanic. I feel like they didn't show enough detail here, but Frostbite. At the start of battle, 1 random Animus from your lineup will be afflicted with Frostmark. After 10 turns, a snowstorm will sweep across the battlefield. So this doesn't really tell us what that even means, what that does. It almost sounds like it's going to be like an AoE damage thing, potentially CC, you know, slow, strip, freeze, who knows. We'll have to wait and see, I guess. It sounds much harder than poison, though. And secret stages have been added to Ember Trek. I don't know if this is going to be like additional difficulty, additional optional stuff, or what, but more additions to existing content, I think is going to be cool. So I'm looking forward to the refreshing change. New RTA season opening up, and then new arena loadout feature. These changes are all coming a lot faster than I thought they would, but I'm very happy to see all this stuff. Dedicated gear loadout system available exclusively in Arena Realm mode. Let me double check that. Okay, yeah, Arena Realm mode is just like all of it. So AI, RTA, Fearless, all that jazz. So just everything PvP related. You can create specialized competitive builds for your animus based on team composition, blah, 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 blah. Point is PvP gear sets, maybe team sets, I don't know, but gear sets separated. Fucking fantastic. Thank you. There's so much content that I don't do because I'm like, well, now my AI defense will have no gear if I end up swapping these things around. So this will be very, very helpful. Okay, so here are the character changes. We will look at those at the end. And then a bunch of bug fixes. There might actually be some like potential, you know, buffs or nerfs here that are, you know, fixes. I'll have to look at these another time. I'm not going to go over them today because they're probably mostly just fixes, but as we've known, a lot of these bug fixes end up pretty much just being buffs or nerfs to different things. But anyway, a bunch of fixes. Definitely recommend people take a look at those themselves. And on to more adjustments. Some of this stuff is a little loosely worded and not very specific, so not sure what it means. But first up is enhanced strategy functionality, adding a lineup recommendation for daily high difficulty challenges with curated top tier animus setups based on aggregated player clears, which basically just sounds like some kind of in-game system where it's going to give you recommended either teams or units to different pieces of content. Kind of like how we have recent clears and like fastest clears. This would be something more like data-driven clears as to like what teams should you use for said piece of content. So we'll have to see once that drops, but that is, I mean, honestly, a lot of games don't even like go that far into actually assisting the players. So I think that this is actually going to be a really good change and very, very useful and helpful for a lot of players, you know, new or old. And then this is probably my favorite part of the entire thing. You know, we're completely destroying the formation menu. Formation feature optimization. After the update, formation will now save both shell and module equipment statuses for Animus. Original menu will be removed. You can save your current team setup and equipment directly to this new thing during the deployment phase of each stage. And any lineup saved in previous, you know, if you already had saves set up in your team formations, those are now going to be wiped. It's going to be brand new. This is great. Now it should be a lot easier to just click, you know, a single button and boom, all of your gear is swapped. Or hopefully, you know, whatever you last cleared a stage with your Inferno runs, you could just now click Inferno. You don't have to move gear around. You just click it and boom, your gear's already all there. So I only hope that's how it works. I'm curious if it will work as well if you're, you know, doing an auto run and then you're gonna go like farm investigation or something. Like, does it actually still keep those gears separate if they ended up using like the same gear, or is it like, no, you can't do that? Display for initial turn meter. I don't know what this means. It could be just like a little number in the little meter at the bottom to kind of show you, I don't know, actual physical numbers to see what everybody's at. I'm really not sure, so I'm curious what that is. Some minor stuff, but a thing that I'll just kind of glaze over here is like pretty much like all of this stuff here. This is all like essentially nerfs, changes, or I guess beneficial changes to rotating events we already have. Like one specifically is, this one's pretty big, the Cage Rumble. That is like the 3-team event that you have to do where you're just hitting the bosses and getting enough points so you can get enough rewards. They're dropping all of those rewards down to make it a lot easier for everybody to get all the stuff. That's good, and then they're doing some other changes to events as well, so they're improving everything, which is really cool. I'm still not the happiest person in the world with how often these events rotate, so they don't feel very special, meaningful, or interesting, but if they're going to keep coming back, at least they're making them better. The other big one, I think this is going to be really nice for a lot of people, especially people who cannot stand RTA, but for wins in RTA now, you are going to get 200 points, and in losses, you are going to get 50 points, rather than before it was 110. Now when you lose, you're gonna get 50. That's 5x. That's a lot easier. It makes losses not so bad anymore when you're just trying to get in there and get your weekly points done. On the flip side, if RTA is kind of like the main thing that you love about the game and that's kind of all you care about, this does make it a little worse for those types of players, because now that that you gain 200 points on a win in RTA, it means that most people are going to do, what is it, 10 wins for the week, and then they don't need to come back anymore. There's no more RTA that needs to be played. They're done for the week. Anything after that is just gravy. Overall, though, I think it's a better approach to the system, and it makes it a lot less punishing for people who do not want to play it nearly as much. And then a bunch of changes here. Nobody will ever know what these means. Improved battle results screen performance. Yeah, don't know. Anyway, there's some other stuff in there I glazed over. Check it out yourself. Maybe there's something in there that will really catch your eye, but I didn't think they were too big, but good stuff to see. Let's get on to characters. All right, Season 1 balance adjustments. The D-Day is here, and I'm really surprised, and it's very interesting to see how they ended up approaching all of the balance changes. All I can confidently say is that I don't think the metas are going to change too much. They're going to be shaken up for sure as far as character picks, but overall, not really many changes, and some very surprising changes, honestly. Let's start off with the first one, and this one I think is like one of the biggest changes, period. And it's great for me because I love Hellkid. This was my fucking boy in the beta. But first change, Hellkid, he's now getting his base speed changed from 111 to 117. 6 more base speed. That's crazy. So 127 at cap. I think that's the same as Lily. I'm not sure. It's right around that range though. So this now means, actually, let me double check. I think it's like faster than Suki, because I think Suki's like 5 base speed under. Yeah, so Suki's only at 122 base. You know, this is not what I think. When you add prowesses, it'll actually add it to the right side. So yeah, 122 base at 6-star, and then Lily's at 127. So on par with Lily. That's fast as hell. So already that's huge. And then they're also buffing his S3. So the attack scaling on his shield, it used to be 240% of his own attack, is now going to be 300%. I haven't used Hellkid since the beta, so I can't really comment on it too much. I do know that when I played through the beta, though, I did think that the more attack I put into him, I felt like the shield really wasn't benefiting me nearly as much. It almost felt like I was better off going into another direction than just stacking flats, you know, nothing but attack. But with more scaling, that just means it's going to be better overall. It's going to be easier to keep that immunity up, and because he's now going to be fast as hell, he's going to be a very good and strong pick when it comes to RTA in general and trying to get around a lot of dot. Basically, it means pre-ban Obel and, you know, get rid of damage so they can't just completely blast off the shield. But, you know, that's also going to be mitigated even further as we get deeper down this list. But anyway, Holden, this is a complete S tier like buff for him. This is pretty huge. He's actually like pretty high on my priority list to build now. Next up, Holden. This is one of the surprising ones. I'm surprised that Holden's getting buffed. That's kind of crazy because I think Holden is generally considered pretty damn good in PvP. So the fact that he's getting buffed, I'm all for it. I'm welcoming it with open arms. If you saw my last video, you know I fucking love Holden. So I'll definitely take that. His S1 is getting buffed. He's getting more damage scaling off of his S1. And he's also getting a boost on the chance to inflict the defense break on the S1. So that's every counter as well. 20 to 25, not a big change, but still nice. And they're buffing his passive, which is probably the best thing they could have buffed out of all of these things. So for every 500 defense, he was gaining 10% counter rate and 5% final damage. So that's the damage multiplier at the end. Which is now being changed to 12% counter rate and 6% final damage. So we go and let me swap back here. Let's find my Holden real quick. Let's see what his defense is at. Make sure he still has gear. Yeah, so right now I'm at 2,900. If I could bump that up, we'll just say I won't. So we'll say about 2,500. That means we can go back here and pretty much just multiply these by 5. So 60% counter rate and 30% extra final damage compared to just 25 off of what it was before. So that's a 5% damage boost and then a 10% higher counter rate. Amazing. Great. Please. Thank you. Yeah, crazy change there. Very good. Very good. Gonna be even crazier in PvP. Chloros, somebody who won't be crazier in PvP, but who would hate a Chloros buff. That's just a great PvE right there. His ult, his S3, it's going to now change the final damage permanent scaling that it has, boosting that by 10% up to a max of 105%. So you're going to scale faster and the cap is just going to be slightly higher. So cool. More damage on Chloros. And Rahu. If of all the defense scalers, I think Rahu is the one that needed to be buffed, but It's still crazy that they're buffing them when I think they're all pretty meta relevant. But anyway, S1 again, just getting its damage boosted here. So it did 350%. Now it does 380% of his own defense with this one's actually pretty big. Going from a 60% chance to an 80% chance, 20% difference to inflict his defense break on the S1. And then on the S3, they're just boosting the amount of damage it does based off of his defense, boosting that by 40% up to 400. So just some damage buffs pretty much for Rahu and a little more consistency on that defense break on the S1 on the follow-up. So very nice. I'm going to try and skim through these, but Real Mocha getting a buff. That's really, really nice. That's going to be even better now for people to get into those really fast Inferno clears on Doki. And just whatever else you want to throw her in. She's also, if she gets a chance to go, she's also a monster in PvP. Absolutely hate her. But yeah, S2, final damage increased by 0.4%. For each 1% HP the target has lost. Good stuff. And the S3, the big one. Let's see, damage multiplier going up 20%. And first hit has a 100% chance to inflict stun now. Yikes. Ugh. That is nasty. She needs no effect hit rate. She's already going crazy. So that's Real Mocha havers go crazy. Fucho, this is a funny one here. So 4th anima effect. Yes, this is the 4th dupe. What she had was effect accuracy plus 12%, which makes no fucking sense because she doesn't apply anything, you know, nothing that needs effect accuracy at least. So completely worthless, actually completely worthless dupe. Now changed to effect resistance plus 12%, so at least now there's some value there. That's a funny one. Aboro. Ooh, this one's a good one for me, because let me go over here. I got really annoyed in the Phoebe fight, so friend suggested, had brought up this suggestion, and I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna try it, and I'm gonna see if she'll work in certain places. Where the heck are you, Aboro? Okay, there we go. Aboro. Yeah, I'm out of upgrade mats, but she's one away from getting the S3 max, and then we have, actually, yeah, I have 4 lattices. I just need to farm some GP, but yeah, Aboro's been getting built, so this is a funny one for me. They're buffing the bleed. This is her own unique debuff, which now will do indirect damage equal to 100% of her attack instead of 50%. Oh, that's gonna be big, man. That's a double damage buff. I already thought she was going to be good for a really long fight with heavy damage mitigation, but now that they're doubling that, that's crazy. So definitely a happy time for me. I'm stoked about that one. Gray getting a buff on the S3, doing some extra damage when he lands a crit, 40% more. Cool. Here we have Red Chiaki the Goat getting a buff on her S3. Let's see, it's giving her 3 stacks of her origami, her damage mitigation, and I think it's like turn push to each target instead of the 2 stacks. So cool. More buffs there. Very nice. She was very helpful recently in the like red and yellow rally fight against, who was it? Not Dahlia. The dot one. Sharon. She was crazy there. She went wild. I don't even have her built, but throwing her in there, she was very helpful. So more buffs to more sustain, more tank stuff. I'm happy about. Wild Rampage Rin. I don't remember the colors. This is the tank one, but is that blue or red? Okay, this is the red one, the better one or at least the one I like more. She's getting her S2 buff, so now her shield is going to be granting an extra 30% of her own defense. Very nice. And the cooldown, reducing from 4 turns to 3 turns. That's at max level, right? Yeah, so at base it'll now, at least it should be. At base it should be 4 turns now after the change, and then it'll be 3 turns at max. Whereas currently it's at 5 and then goes to 4 at max, so more like uptime on defense buffs, and even more important, more uptime on shields. They seem to really want to go in the shield direction. More uptime on shields in PvP, going to be very nice. That's a happy change there for me too. And Tsutomu, I'll be real. Whenever I looked over Tsutomu, he's just completely been out of my head, so I don't even know what the fuck he does. Let's see, S2, 2 hits, more damage on his S2, with a 20% higher chance to steal a random buff from target, so that's cool. I guess it's buff stripping and buff blocking, which I'm seeing now here, so he applies block and does some buff strip. That's actually pretty good. If you're lacking in block or buff strip, solid option. But S3 also just getting a damage boost there, so cool stuff. Good for Sutoma. This is wild behavior. If they just kept this at the beginning of the game. Really all that this change ended up doing was like hurting people in PvE. I don't think it changed much in PvP. But Marvel, the OG nerf back at the launch of the game, it's now being basically reverted. He's not getting, I don't think, they already mentioned speed once in these notes, so I'm going to assume that his speed's not getting changed back, but his S3 cooldown is now being dropped from 5 turns back down to 4 turns, so good for Marvel. I think this is just going to help players out. You don't see him too often in PvP, but he's still very good in there if you can, you know, get him fast, get him going, doing his thing. But this doesn't really make him any scarier than he was. This is just going to make it a lot nicer, mostly in PvE. Mizuki, the little... Okay, that almost sounded weird the way I was going to say it, but the little buff stripper that that could, or could not in most cases, I think you don't really see a lot of her play, in, especially not in PvE. I think in PvP, some people were using her in higher tiers, but anyway, her base speed is increasing. God, that is so low. From 107 to 110, so 3 more base speed, cool. Anybody who's at 107 base speed could definitely use more. And then buff on her S1, doing 60% more damage based off of her own defense. So cool. More defense scaling damage. Yeah, they really want to push people. It seems from a lot of these notes, they want to push people more in the direction of longer, drawn-out fights, which for me is cool. I like that. I enjoy the tank stuff. But I know for a lot of people out there, they're not going to be big fans of these changes. But yeah, it looks like they're trying to slow the game down in general. They want to have less cleaves and more, I guess, back and forth. Which, when CC is as strong as it is, it's hard to kind of have that back and forth, in my opinion. But, you know, as people continue to get more and more geared out and whatnot, it'll be a lot easier to kind of have that back and forth. But anyway, next one is Sybil, our little single target rev user. S2 getting 20% more damage, cool. And then her S3 also getting 20% more damage and getting her defense break chance boosted by 10%, going up to 60, so cool. Researcher number 41, this one, very good change, you know, makes her even more viable. Boosting her turn meter push on her S3 by 5%, cool. Nothing too crazy though. And then Red Kachi, let's see, S3 now boosting stun chance from 35 to 50%. Genuinely huge change. Not only is it more effect accuracy, but now means that the cap is going to hit the actual, you know, in-game cap of 90%, whereas before it can only cap out at 70. So that's a huge change for Red Kachi there. And ding dong, I'm sure a lot of people are happy about this. The bitch is dead. Revelation implemented effects in PvP modes, so only PvP. Rev will be affected by the Etheria effects, protection field, reducing damage dealt by 30%. So now Rev is just going to be stripped down, 30% damage. So it is a nerf. It's not the biggest nerf. Rev is still going to be very strong. It's just not going to, you know, be nearly as powerful as it was before, especially if you can get an attack break off before they're actually able to get any Rev cleaves off. Yeah, it's definitely a huge hit to it for sure, though. So I'm curious to see if people are going to keep running Rev or they're going to go into a different direction. I already heard that a lot of people are actually running cleaves on like Bloodbath and whatnot, so they're already kind of opting for less damage in general. But with this Rev hit, that might actually make it even harder for you to run less offensive sets because you're not going to do nearly as much damage as you were before. It probably won't change that much, honestly. But yeah, at least having this drop down in damage will be nice. I don't think anybody could say that that's really a bad change. I think, but it'll be a wait and see, because if it's so bad that cleave just doesn't work period anymore, then it's not so good. I think what this will mean though is that you kind of need to make sure you're guaranteeing to run multiple cleavers if you are going to go for more cleave strats. And then here we're going to get into a couple of more confusing changes for me. So first one is Golden Line is being buffed. So now the final damage stacking you get, it used to be 5% per stack, is now going to be 8% per stack, and effect accuracy used to be 7%? Is that actually? Yeah, 7% per stack. Going up to now 15% per stack. Max stacks reduced from 8 to 5, and then Oh wait, no, I get it now. I'm dumb. When I first read through this, I was like, I don't get it. It makes no sense to me. It makes more sense now. So before it was, we have a higher stack cap. So how Golden Lion works, every time you use an S1 twice, you get 1 stack of Golden Lion. So you would get 5% final damage, you'd get 7% effect accuracy, and you'd have to stack that up 8 times to get the max benefit. Now you only have to stack it up to 5 times, and they're going to make the scaling even higher. So each stack is going to be worth more. So you're going to hit that cap a lot faster. So definitely good to see here. This does mean that you, depending on the character, I guess, like let's use Yelly for example. Yelly is probably, we're just gonna go with the baseline of 2 S1s per, turn. So it's now going to take her about 5 turns. It's probably on average going to be about 4, but yeah, about 5 turns to now cap out the Golden Lion, and maybe it'll make it a little more viable to run over something that is just raw, pure good damage like Revelation is. And then here, all shell skills will no longer be considered skill 1. Any effects that target or interact with skill 1 will no longer apply to shell skills. I mean, maybe I'd have to see more of what they're meaning here. There are some weird ones, like specifically, let's bring it back over to here. Specifically on like Kazu right here. Kazu running Jackal. Jackal will do its follow-up and it will not wake them up when it's being used off of Kazu, and I never really understood why, and that could be potentially why. I guess we'll wait and see, but yeah, maybe that's what the change is, and I don't know, maybe any other interactions anybody can think of. Not sure, but it sounds like it could be nothing but a good change in my opinion. And then finally, the last one, Kenai can no longer be triggered by damage from shells, which, I'm sure most people weren't even aware that was a thing, but, we're just fixing what seems like to be a bug there. Overall, very interesting stuff to see. You will see here, if we just scroll through, it's not like a big laundry list. It's not a lot of changes. You'll see here, it's a sea of green and only 1 red. So this makes me think of one thing, and that is them really wanting to double down on not giving people resets whatsoever. And I think that you gotta understand that character resets in these types of games are a pretty uncommon thing. They kind of break the balance of the game and kind of how it all works. If we could just always look forward to a reset on characters, there'd kind of be like no real, choices or decisions in where you put all of your resources, because you would know that at the end of it, you'll be able to just move it somewhere else. So it seems to be that they are going to be incredibly cautious as far as it comes to nerfing any characters. The rev hit is interesting. I think that is going to make some people kind of upset, but I mean, it's also understandable. But yeah, it just seems they're very scared to actually nerf anything. So a lot of buffs here. Seems that they're trying to create more counterplay styles, mostly to CC, and then just kind of gimping cleave pretty hard. So you can have to get a little creative and think outside the box when it comes to just going in for cleave comps there. Overall, I'd say some pretty good changes though. I mean, let's not forget, no matter how you feel on all the character changes, let's not forget here, formation updates. That's fucking huge. I'm super stoked for that. And then wherever it was, the PvP separation of gear, like definitely a lot of really good quality of life changes in the game, especially a lot sooner than I thought these would come up, since they were just talked about a couple weeks ago. So really cool to see how fast that stuff is getting implemented. I was kind of hoping for, we're a couple months in now. I was kind of hoping we would see some kind of like, maybe not roadmap, but something for players to look forward to. I think that the game has really been lacking in kind of like big showcasey or interesting events, or really anything kind of going on. It's mostly just been, putting out some fires, quality of life changes, rotating, repeating events, and like basically no story whatsoever. Like I've made it, no surprise, no secret that I think the story is complete ass. It just seems to be kind of all over the place, very haphazard, very rushed. It doesn't really focus in on any of the characters. Everybody's just kind of there. Nobody has too much of a personality or any real chance to shine. No real backstory or lore for any of the characters whatsoever. And we haven't seen any news, any noise, any details of any updates to story whatsoever since now, like 2 months in. The only thing I think we have had are additions into Anti-Sync echoes, maybe? Have we even had any? I'm trying to remember what the last character was. Maybe it was Doki. I'm sure nobody fucking reads these because I sure as hell don't. It actually goes farther than I thought. It might even go even further than this, but the latest that I can see is Heinrich. Like, I don't know how many people even know this exists, but there's like these little like stories here in Anti-Sync Echoes, but there's like no reason to do them. They're just kind of like really out of the way and hidden. So I don't even know if these are interesting or what. They're there though. That's about all I could say that. And the clue system, I don't even remember what the heck this is from, like how you get these. But yeah, there's the clue system that I don't think has been touched at all since the launch either. Apparently I'm missing 4. I don't know if that's from the story or what. Yeah, no story, no rhyme or reason, no big events, nothing huge to look forward to. It's just kind of been grind away, which, you know, I'm still having fun. I still like the whole grind away aspect to everything, but I just kind of wish there was something more to look forward to. There's really not a whole lot. I think the biggest focus they've really had is just in like the EWS PvP tournament, which I forgot. I didn't even talk about that. I did want to make a video on that, but I completely forgot. But I thought that event was pretty cool. The EWS tournament overall, it was a fun time. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that'll be the next big step. Is maybe a roadmap or some bigger thing to look forward to down the horizon. But for now, I would say this has been a pretty healthy approach as far as the big changes go and getting into the adjustments for RTA. For people that wanted to see a lot of things hit, this isn't going to change much for you, but I still think that this is going to diversify what's going on in PvP a bit more, especially when it comes to the climb up, where people are not just going to be spamming Revelation Cleave, and we're not just going to see, you know, Rev Freya, Rev Hein, Rev RC, Rev DPSs. So that's that. Enough rambling from me. You know, I do it every time, but thanks everybody for watching. Take care. Hopefully you, you know, you're looking forward to these updates. Should just be coming tomorrow. So I look forward to that. Thank you everybody, and catch you in the next one.